What's going on, guys? Welcome to Everything Always. My name is Michael Roman, aka Allfires. Now, if you haven't been following all the leaks and rumors lately, they all culminated in one place. There is a rumored second casting announcement coming at the end of this month on August 27th, and among the names included in that second round of cast announcements, and via the most trusted industry insider sources like Jeff Snyder, have said Chris Evans will finally be revealed as a part of the cast of Avengers Doomsday. Now, there have been a wide variety of reports about what kind of Steve Rogers we may be seeing out of Chris Evans on this film, to say the very least. Earliest reports indicated an evil Cap or a Hydra Cap alongside Dr. Doom as part of his evil Avengers, but real recently, leaks and reports like a deleted post-credit scene that would have been featured in the Fantastic Four are setting up a hero version of Steve Rogers, or more should I say a nomad version from somewhere across the multiverse. Well, that's where we pick up today with the latest industry insider leak for the Avengers Doomsday plot, and if true, it indicates why Dr. Doom wants Steve Rogers dead and exactly which variant we're going to get. What's even crazier, it could completely recontextualize the end of Avengers Endgame and when we last saw Steve Rogers. We're breaking it all down, where this came from and what it says about Chris Evans' specific Steve Rogers role in the upcoming Avengers Doomsday. But first, if you could grab the subscribe button. Thanks to everyone who's been subbing lately and helped grow the channel, and if you haven't already, I just kindly invite you to do so. It's the #1 thing you can do to support us, plus it'll enter you for all the giveaways if you want. Stick around at the end of the video, we get into all the giveaway stuff again there. Okay, so this latest detail comes from none other than the anonymous Twitter scoopster My Time to Shine Hello, who has been in the Marvel scoop game almost as long as I've been doing YouTube videos for the better part of the last decade, and while they haven't always gotten everything right, they have been the source of major scoops in the past, so take that as you will, but we're going to give them a lot more reverence than, say, an anonymous post to social media or Reddit, or some of the newer scoopers that we haven't yet had a chance to vet their track record. Take that as you will. In their latest update about Avengers Doomsday, My Time to Shine Hello goes on to say that Dr. Doom wants Steve Rogers dead because when he went back in time to live with Peggy Carter after he returned the Infinity Stones, he is actually the one who started the Incursions. Now, true or not as a leak or rumor, this is an absolutely crazy theory. First and foremost, if you missed our most recent report, it was confirmed that Chris Evans' codename on the set of Avengers Doomsday was Luke Cage, and based on that, and because there were leaked plans for a Luke Cage house, we know it was basically a log cabin off the grid, could have easily been set in the past, and seemed to imply that's where we would pick up with Nomad Steve Rogers from somewhere across the multiverse. This theory says that it's actually our Steve Rogers, picking right up where we left off at the end of Avengers Endgame. And remember, Anthony Mackie in his most recent quote said that they were going to take the emotional ending of Avengers Endgame and turn it into chaos. We all took that to mean, obviously, Tony Stark's death, but for him, a more emotional scene would be Steve Rogers going back in time and then showing up on the bench much older and having lived out this other life. Now, as I mentioned during the prologue, and again, if this is true, it could be absolutely wild, because what this could ultimately be is a Steve Rogers who's been through Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars, who's fought by Sam Wilson's future self already having the shield, and we know that when Steve Rogers gives Sam a shield, it is not the same one that Steve has traditionally had. We've always wondered where he got that. Could it be he gets it from the shield that Sam already has in the future? And obviously that would create a weird paradox or a time loop. Still, there is one sort of nitpick detail we have to focus in on that this all hinges on, and that's back when we were in the post-press junket after Avengers Endgame had absolutely killed it. There were interviewers asking the Russos point blank about what actually happened, and it seems like the writers on the film and the directors on the film were giving different answers. Some of the answers said, well, Steve Rogers went back in time on the 616 timeline, met Peggy Carter there, and then just lived all the way through. But that doesn't make total sense, because remember, we pick up with Peggy Carter in the hospital, and the current Steve Rogers, that would be the older Steve Rogers, is nowhere to be found. So there's already a plot hole inherent in that. Now, separately, the writers seem to imply that he went to another part of the multiverse, but the multiverse really hadn't been established yet, and other than that scene with Loki taking off that we're going to see, obviously he intercepts with the TVA, they weren't willing to wade into that, and it doesn't seem like Tony Stark's GPS time bracelet had anything to do with multiverse travel. It only had to do with time travel. That's why he has that eureka moment and then tells Pepper Potts that he figured out time travel, not multiverse travel. But the saving grace may be here is that they never really locked in an answer, and there could be possibilities in ways that he actually ended up in a different part of the multiverse. Then the logic would be completely sound, because as we know from Multiverse of Madness, that there is a destabilization factor when someone is in the wrong multiverse and not where they're supposed to be. Now, since we are in the theory craft of it all, I am going to point out some, well, I wouldn't call them major plot holes, but there are some inconsistencies here. Like, since we're talking about Multiverse of Madness, Reed Richards tells Doctor Strange point blank that his presence in the 838 destabilizes reality, and that the longer he's there, the bigger footprint he leaves behind, the better chance he has of leading to an incursion. It's not just the dream walking between him and the black hole and Scarlet Witch, it's just him in the wrong part of the multiverse. But then we find out later in that film that America Chavez basically spends time in all of the wrong parts of the multiverse because she's trying to make it back to her original home and can't find it. So she's always in the wrong part of the multiverse, yet she doesn't seem to be creating any incursions. And then to take that one step further, we also know that Wolverine from a different timeline just got dragged into the 10,005, and instead of that creating an incursion, apparently he was able to replace that timeline's anchor beam. So there are a ton of inconsistencies, and may I dare call them some plot holes right now in the Marvel canon. But there's two things I would say about that. If you really want to get bogged down in some of those details contradicting each other, you sort of will lose the whole fun of it. And while we do love to theory craft at this channel, I'm never going to not point out things that don't make sense. Marvel still has a great opportunity ahead of them to sort of clear some of this up, or at least play by the same coherent rules for the next two Avengers films. And they did bring Michael Waldron in, the guy who crafted a lot of this canon in the first place, so they're in good hands. I have a lot of faith for what they're doing in these two films. I will also put an asterisk by it and say that the Russos have always had a sort of knack for avoiding sort of getting bogged down when they should be doing huge explainers. For instance, like the Stark Tech Gauntlet, they just skipped over that because there was no need to show and explain that and create plot holes. They just kept it going. Now, I will also say that there are obviously some bigger inconsistencies that they don't talk about when they're trying to do legit sci-fi, like we just saw in the Fantastic Four, except everybody speaks English all across the universe. And on top of that, they don't ever make a point to make up for the time dilation or the time relativity that you would experience in between planets in the different parts of the universe, like we saw very clearly in Interstellar. Or if you've ever watched any of those types of videos on YouTube, I watch them all the time. One part of the universe is going to age at a completely different rate, and so when Captain Marvel just flew off and grabbed Tony and then brought him back, they didn't really ever equate for how the time dilation would have worked there and how they all would have aged at different rates when they're fighting on Titan, but they're also fighting in Wakanda, and those seem to be happening simultaneously. Of course, we know across the universe they wouldn't be happening simultaneously. Also, hate to bring this up, but since the Fantastic Four just introduced an FTL drive during their film, a faster than light drive, in order to zip across the universe, a faster than light drive, in theory, creates enormous paradoxes that break causality in our real world understanding of physics and time. You can't have a faster than light drive, but again, you can't get bogged down in these details. You have to take it for the fun of the story. That being said, to do our Steve Rogers from the 616 would be the most meaningful to the fans, right? If you were going to pick any Steve Rogers across the multiverse, and we've seen it with Rick and Morty a million times, in an infinite multiverse of characters, you got to follow the ones that you actually follow. That's how you make meaning out of it. Except we are really quick to latch on to different variants, and although we followed a whole new Loki through the Multiverse Saga, that wasn't our Loki from the 616, same actor, same character, we almost immediately bought in that he was the same variant, and he wasn't. So there's a lot of ways to do this that I think will make sense, but to find out that it would be a Nomad version and it had anything to do with him returning the Infinity Stones and or sort of traveling the timeline, they're going to have to do a lot of explaining as to why he would be the core reason that Incursions started happening in the first place. Plus, remember, the TVA was on the scene quickly snatching up Loki. Why and how wouldn't they have intercepted Captain America and thrown everything at him like they seem to be doing? Or why wasn't it reported that Captain America was more of a problem than Loki was at the TVA? Seems like we would have for sure heard about that as part of the story by now, and we haven't. But look, it does sound like for the last 2 or 3 minutes I've been ripping this theory apart, and again, I'm treating it as a theory instead of a leak because to me it is unbelievable. I think it's much easier to go with a new variant and start your own part of the story the same way they just did with Wolverine, because technically he was dead at the end of Logan. But you guys let me know all your thoughts down below about any and all of this and how you would do it. Which variant should we see? The same one from the 616 that we just left at the end of Avengers Endgame? Well, technically that we saw right before the end of Avengers Endgame, or should they pick up with a fresh variant? I'm all ears as always. Quickly, let's get into the giveaway stuff before I let you go. All right, we are still giving away PlayStation 5s at the channel. If you want to be entered to win or for any of the other giveaways, super simple, all the same rules will always apply. Hit the subscribe button because you need to be a subscriber, then leave a comment down below, and because it's truly random, the more videos you comment on, the better chance you have of winning. All winners will always be announced at the end of videos, the same way we're doing live with my voice and the winning comments shown on screen, so please be safe and vigilant on YouTube. The best way to keep up with the content has always been to hit the notification bell with all notifications turned on, and as always, if you like today's video, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit the like button. My name's Michael Roman. You can find me in a couple of places, Instagram and Twitter at I'mFires. You can also find me on all other platforms with original music under the name All Fires. Also, if you're going to be at Base Canyon this weekend out at the Gorge outside of Seattle, I will also be there. We're actually playing the Crater stage at 6:25. I'm sitting in with my homie KJ Saga. We will be ripping about 3 or 4 of the tracks I put out on Impossible Records. So again, if you're going to be at Base Canyon, 6:25, Saturday night, the Crater stage, I'll see you there. Make sure you say hi. I'll see the rest of you in the next video. Peace.